My sister stole and ruined my business, out of jealousy. But she didn't expect what came next. I never thought I'd be writing this, but here we are. My name is Quinn, and I need to tell you what happened over the past year. Yes, I've talked to a lawyer. Yes, this sounds insane. And no, I'm not exaggerating. I'm 32, and I've spent the last decade working 3 jobs to fund what my family called my sewing hobby. I'm a sustainable fashion designer, creating one-of-a-kind pieces from repurposed fabrics and natural dyes. Every piece is handmade, signed with embroidered labels. Getting here wasn't easy. I worked as a receptionist during the day, cleaned offices 3 evenings weekly, and waitressed weekends. Every spare penny went into professional equipment and materials. At night, I taught myself pattern making while everyone else slept. My family never understood. Every gathering was the same. When are you getting a real job? The worst part was the comparisons to my half-sister from my father's second marriage. She became a successful influencer with hundreds of thousands of followers, traveling constantly, living what looked like a perfect life. Every dinner became about her latest brand deal or trip. Meanwhile, I'd mention completing a challenging commission, and I'd get polite nods before conversation shifted back to her. But I kept going, slowly building a client base through social media. After years of saving, I finally launched my brand. I created my first collection of 20 pieces and found a vintage shop to host my launch event. The night arrived, and I was terrified and excited. Loyal clients showed up early, genuinely enthusiastic. Then my family arrived late. My father looked uncomfortable. My stepmother started taking performative photos. My half-sister strolled in 2 hours late, designer sunglasses indoors, phone in hand. She walked through slowly, barely looking. I watched her touch fabrics with just her fingertips. When she reached my lookbook about sustainable fashion, she skimmed it for maybe 10 seconds and laughed. "This is so you," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Very alternative, very niche." My stepmother jumped in. "It's charming. Very rustic. Like a farmer's market." My face burned. Rustic, alternative, niche. Not beautiful or impressive, just a cute hobby from the disappointing daughter. My father patted my shoulder. "Nice hobby, kid. But these trends pass. What's your backup plan?" I wanted to scream that sustainable fashion wasn't a trend, that I'd built actual skills while she just photographed herself. But I smiled, thanked them for coming. The event ended well despite them. Several pieces sold. A local blog wanted to interview me, but I couldn't enjoy it because of the look in my half-sister's eyes when she examined my work. It wasn't just dismissal. It was something else that made my stomach twist. That night, alone in the empty shop surrounded by my creations, I cried frustrated, angry tears. I'd worked so hard, and I was proud of what I'd created, but my family would never see me as anything other than the girl playing with fabric scraps. I should have trusted that instinct, because what she saw that night wasn't my failure. It was an opportunity, and she was already planning how to take it. 3 months after launch, things were going well. I was getting regular commissions, my following was growing, and a local shop wanted to carry my pieces. I was exhausted but happy. My half-sister and I barely talked, which was fine. Then, one April afternoon, she suddenly asked to visit my studio. I'd finally upgraded from my bedroom to a small converted garage. She showed up acting unusually interested in everything. "This is so cool," she kept saying, walking around touching things. She asked about sourcing materials, creating patterns, my design process. She took photos of everything, saying she wanted to feature me on her stories, that her followers would love authentic artisan work. I was so desperate for family validation that I showed her everything. My sketches, pattern templates, specific techniques for natural dyeing, unique finishing touches, my whole philosophy about sustainable fashion. She nodded along, asked thoughtful questions, took more photos. When she left, she hugged me and said she was proud, that she'd been wrong to dismiss my work. I actually cried after she left because it felt like finally, someone in my family understood. That was mid-April. By June, everything collapsed. A client named Iris sent me a screenshot with just a question mark emoji. My stomach dropped before I even opened it. The screenshot showed a marketplace post featuring a dress that looked exactly like one of my designs. Not inspired by, exactly like. The caption read, "Introducing my new sustainable fashion line. Each piece tells a story through repurposed materials." The seller was my half-sister. I stared at my phone for 5 minutes. Then more messages flooded in. More screenshots. 5 different designs that were direct copies of my work. Not just concepts, but specific details I'd spent weeks perfecting. I went to her profile. She'd launched this 2 weeks ago. Post after post showcased her designs, all of which I immediately recognized. She'd copied parts of my mission statement word for word. The prices made me sick. She was selling them for a third of what I charged. The comments were full of praise. Her followers loved it. They were ordering, tagging friends. I called her immediately. Voicemail. I texted. Nothing. 20 agonizing minutes later. Can't talk now, in a meeting. What's up? You copied my designs. 3 dots appeared. Inspiration isn't a crime, lol. You can't own an aesthetic. Then, besides, I saw those patterns when I visited. They were just sitting there. You can't be mad that I used publicly available inspiration. One more message. If you're upset, maybe you should have moved faster. The sustainable fashion market is competitive. Not my fault I have better resources and reach. I called again. This time she answered, annoyed. You stole my work. Those are my designs. You photographed my patterns and had them manufactured. I was inspired by your work. That's how fashion works. You don't have a monopoly on sustainable clothing. You copied specific designs, even my mission statement. Oh, please. You're overreacting because you're jealous. I have the platform to actually make this work. You should thank me for bringing attention to sustainable fashion. Where are you getting these made? Pause. A production facility. Professionals, not some woman in her garage. That hurt. So you sent my patterns to a factory for cheap mass production. I sent inspiration to manufacturers who helped me refine designs for scalability. This is business, not art class. If you can't handle competition, maybe reconsider this industry. I showed you everything because you're family. And I appreciated the tour. Look, I have a call with an investor. Maybe we can talk later when you're less emotional. She hung up. I stood in my garage studio, surrounded by fabric and half-finished projects, feeling something cold settle inside me. She thought I was emotional. She thought I'd cry and complain. She thought I was just a hobbyist who couldn't handle real business. She had no idea what was coming. I didn't post angry rants. Working 3 jobs while building a business taught me patience and strategy. Emotional reactions feel satisfying but rarely solve problems. Instead, I made a documentation list. I downloaded every photo I'd posted with timestamps. I gathered original sketches, fabric receipts, design software timestamps, client emails about commissions featuring these exact designs. Then I documented everything she'd posted. Screenshots with dates, archive links. I noted comments from people mentioning they'd seen similar designs elsewhere. The next morning, I called the law firm where I worked. My boss connected me with Patricia, a lawyer specializing in intellectual property and design theft. I showed her everything. Original posts with timestamps, sketches, patterns, photos my half-sister took in my studio, and her current listings. This is pretty solid, Patricia said. You have clear proof of original creation predating her launch. The studio visit gives evidence of access. The similarity is obvious, and you documented your unique techniques. So I can stop her? Legal action has limitations. These cases can be long and expensive, but there are other approaches. Has she registered trademarks? Copyrights? I doubt it. She launched 2 weeks ago. And you? I shook my head, embarrassed. Then let's start there. We'll register your brand, logo, and every design as copyrighted work. We'll document your techniques as trade secrets. We'll make sure legally you own everything. Over 2 weeks, we built an ironclad legal foundation. We registered my brand. We copyrighted every design with detailed construction documentation. We gathered client statements. We documented my entire creative process. I also discovered something chilling. She hadn't just copied existing designs. She'd copied patterns and sketches I hadn't made public yet. Designs I'd only shown her during the studio visit. She'd already produced several and was marketing them as coming soon. This was premeditated. The friendly visit, sudden interest, photos, all calculated theft. Here's my recommendation, Patricia said. Let her sell. Let her keep posting. Let her build inventory and make claims about this being her business. Meanwhile, we ensure every legal protection is in place. Then, when timing is right, we move. Why wait? Right now, minor infractions. Give her time for major ones. Let her invest in inventory. Let her make public claims about original designs. Bigger infringement, stronger case. It felt counterintuitive. Watching her sell my work daily burned. But I trusted Patricia's experience. I kept running my business normally, taking commissions, posting work. When people asked about her line or if we'd collaborated, I gave vague responses. We're family, so she's seen my work. Nothing accusatory, just facts. Meanwhile, she dug deeper. Interviews with fashion magazines, posts about her design philosophy, targeted ads. She even accepted pre-orders for future collections based on my stolen, unreleased patterns. Every post, interview, advertisement, I documented systematically. Sometimes I'd laugh darkly at her confidence claiming these as her vision. 3 months after her launch, Patricia called. She signed a deal with a boutique chain. They're carrying her pieces in 15 locations. The press release says she's the designer and creator. My stomach twisted. That's bad, right? That means she just made this a much bigger legal deal. I think it's time we showed her exactly what kind of mistake she made. Are you ready? I looked around my studio at pieces I'd created with my own hands. I thought about years of work, 3 jobs, late nights, the moment I trusted her enough to show everything. I'm ready. Patricia drafted cease and desist letters for Monday delivery. But Sunday night, I created a video. Not a rant, but calm, methodical fact presentation. I'd spent weeks rehearsing. The video opened with me in my studio. Hi, I'm Quinn. I need to tell you about intellectual property theft, and I need to show receipts. Then I methodically walked through everything. Original sketches with timestamps from years ago. Social media posts showcasing techniques and designs, all dated. Photos of client pieces with testimony. Photos my half-sister took during her visit. Then her website and social media. Side-by-side comparisons. My dress from 2 years ago next to hers from 3 months ago. Identical. My unique sleeve construction, specific hem techniques, signature finishing, all in her pieces. I showed screenshots of her claims about being the designer. Interview quotes about her creative process. Then my copyright registrations, all dated before her launch. I'm not making this to shame anyone. I'm making it because small creators need to know they have rights. When someone steals your work, profits from your creativity, you're allowed to protect yourself. You're allowed to say, this is mine, and you took it. I posted at 8 p.m. Sunday. Tagged no one. 2,000 views by midnight. 10,000 by morning. By Monday afternoon when Patricia's letters were delivered, 300,000 views and climbing. My phone exploded. Messages from clients, friends, other designers. News outlets requesting interviews. Thousands of furious comments supporting me. Real chaos started around 2 p.m. when the boutique chain released a statement. We've been made aware of intellectual property concerns. We're suspending this partnership pending investigation. We don't support design theft. My half-sister posted frantically, there seems to be confusion. All my work is original and inspired by various sources as is normal in fashion. Any similarities are purely coincidental. Comments were brutal. Coincidental? Did you watch her video? Those are exact copies. She deleted it within an hour and posted new. I'm consulting with my legal team about these false accusations. I won't be bullied by jealous competitors. That's when other designers came forward. 3 posted comparison videos showing designs they'd made that appeared in her line after interacting with her. She'd been doing this systematically. By Tuesday morning, major publications picked it up. Influencer accused of systematic design theft. Copyright infringement scandal rocks sustainable fashion launch. My father called Tuesday afternoon. What the hell is going on? Your sister is hysterical. She says you're destroying her business. She stole my designs. I have copyright registrations and documentation. I showed her my studio in confidence, and she photographed everything to copy. So you humiliate her publicly? You couldn't handle this privately? I tried building my business legitimately. She stole my work and profited. I protected what's mine. She's family. So am I said quietly. But that didn't stop her. And it won't stop me from defending my work. I hung up. My stepmother sent long texts about tearing the family apart, being vindictive, jealous of her daughter's success. I didn't respond. By Wednesday, the manufacturer ceased production. Her website went dark. Social media posts disappeared, though people had archived everything. Patricia called Wednesday night. They want to settle. Her lawyers reached out, willing to acknowledge infringement, make public apology, discuss financial compensation. I should have felt victorious. Mostly, I just felt tired. What do you want? Patricia asked. I looked at a half-finished dress on my table. This was what I loved, creating. not fighting. I want to make sure she can never do this again. To me or anyone. What do we need? Let me make calls. I think we can make this very expensive for her in ways that matter. Settlement negotiations took 2 weeks. Her lawyers tried every angle. Design's too common, she'd made changes, fashion inspiration isn't theft. I was vindictive over family issues. Patricia dismantled everything with documentation and testimonies from 3 other copied designers. But what destroyed their position wasn't just legal. Once my story went viral, people started digging. Journalists investigated her influencer career and found patterns of questionable authenticity. Sponsored posts claiming she loved products she'd criticized. Luxury trips that were paid promotions she'd failed to disclose. Photos claimed as exotic locations that were local studios. None illegal, but painting a picture of someone whose entire presence was constructed artifice. The theft wasn't isolated. It was part of a pattern. Brands started dropping her. Sponsored posts disappeared. Her follower count dropped from 600,000 to 400,000 in 3 weeks. The real damage was behind the scenes. The boutique deal included a substantial advance she'd already spent. When it fell through, she owed that back. The manufacturer demanded payment for completed production. Pre-orders she couldn't fulfill opened her to fraud complaints. Her influencer career, built on success appearance, was financially a house of cards. The fashion line was supposed to be her pivot into actual business ownership. Instead, it exposed her and cost everything. 3 weeks after my video, she posted a public apology. Real, written by lawyers but forced by circumstances. After extensive review, I acknowledge I used designs, patterns, and techniques belonging to another designer without permission. This was wrong. I violated copyright law and trust of customers who believed they were buying original designs. This wasn't isolated, and my behavior hurt multiple small creators. I'm ceasing all fashion line operations immediately, issuing full refunds. I apologize to everyone I deceived. Comments were mostly too little, too late. The settlement included key provisions, financial damages, my legal fees, destruction of all remaining inventory, never using my designs, techniques, or brand identity, a signed statement admitting theft. The money mattered less than the admission. I needed it legally binding that she'd stolen. Not inspired. Stolen. But I also requested something unusual. Part of the settlement required a recorded interview, mediated by lawyers, where she explained what she did and why. I wanted to hear her say it. The interview happened in Patricia's conference room. My half-sister looked awful. Weight lost, dark circles, no polish. Just a tired, defeated woman. Why? I asked. Long silence. Because I was desperate. My follower count plateaued. Engagement dropped. I needed something new. Authentic, but I'd never created anything myself. Everything about my presence was borrowed or curated from others' ideas. So you took mine. I saw your work at the launch and hated how much I admired it. You'd made something real. You had actual skills. I had nothing except a camera and making my life look better than it was. She looked at me. When you invited me to your studio, I saw opportunity. Small enough no one would notice. Family, so you wouldn't suspect. And I thought with my platform, I could make your design successful in ways you never could. You thought you were helping? No. I thought I was smart enough to get away with it. I thought more followers meant better at business. I thought you'd never fight back because you'd always been quiet and accommodating. That hurt because she was right. I'm sorry, she continued. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am genuinely sorry. Not just because I got caught, because I hurt you. You trusted me, and I betrayed that. You worked years building something real, and I tried stealing it because I was too scared to fail at building something myself. I left with complicated feelings. I'd wanted to hate her. But seeing her broken, seeing the real person under the persona, was harder. She'd lost her career, income, reputation, and family respect. My father barely spoke to her now, disappointed she'd embarrassed the family. She finally got the disappointment I'd lived with for years. I didn't feel victorious, just exhausted and sad it came to this. The family implosion was predictable. My father called 3 days after settlement, not to apologize, but to tell me I'd gone too far. She's your sister. Family protects each other. I was organizing fabric, phone on speaker. She stole from me, for months, deliberately, after I trusted her. It was a business dispute. You could have handled it privately. I tried. She told me I was overreacting and she had better resources. Your stepmother is devastated. Anxiety attacks. Can't sleep. Her daughter's career destroyed because you couldn't let this go. Something snapped. Her daughter destroyed her own career by stealing from multiple people. She made choices. Committed fraud. Broke copyright law. I didn't do that, she did. You made it public. Humiliated her in front of millions. I documented facts. Showed evidence. Protected my intellectual property. I picked up my phone. Dad, when was the last time you asked about my work? Not to criticize, but actually learn what I do? Silence. When was my last show? What's my brand called? Name one technique I specialize in. More silence. That's what I thought. I have a commission deadline. I hung up. My stepmother sent increasingly hostile texts. I read the first few, then stopped. The message that made me block her. You may have won legally, but you've lost your family. Was it worth it? I stared at that message. Was it worth it? I'd protected my work, stood up for myself, but the cost was losing what little family connection I'd had. Except I realized I hadn't really lost anything. You can't lose something you never had. My stepmother was never a mother to me. My father remarried when I was a teenager and started a new family I was adjacent to, but never fully part of. My half-sister and I were never close. The family I was supposedly tearing apart was already broken. I'd been too busy trying to earn acceptance to notice. What hurt was realizing I'd wasted time chasing validation from people who'd never give it. Every late-night sewing, every achievement, I'd subconsciously been proving something to them, and they'd never cared. I got a letter weeks later, handwritten, from my mother who'd left when I was 8, and we'd had minimal contact since. I saw the news. I wanted you to know I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. I know I don't have the right to say that, given my absence, but I wanted you to hear it. What you've built is remarkable. What you did to protect it took courage. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for refusing to be stolen from. I cried reading that. Not because it fixed our relationship, but because it was the first time anyone in my biological family acknowledged my work as legitimate, as valuable, as worth protecting. The contrast was stark. My father's family saw me as vindictive. My mother, largely absent, recognized what I'd built and respected my defense of it. I started therapy that month. Not because I was falling apart, but because I needed help processing everything. You've been seeking external validation for your worth, my therapist said. First from your father and family, then from clients and social media. But your worth isn't dependent on anyone's recognition. I know that intellectually. But do you believe it? Everything suggests you've been trying to prove yourself to people who were never going to see you clearly. She was right. I'd been on an achievement treadmill, thinking if I just worked harder, eventually my family would see me as equal. But they'd already decided who was valuable, and no amount of success would change that. My clients didn't need me to prove anything. Other designers respected my skills. Friends valued me for who I was. The only people needing me to be different were people whose opinions shouldn't have mattered. That realization was freeing and painful. It meant letting go of hope I'd carried since childhood. That someday, my father would look at me with pride. That someday, I'd be enough. I had to accept someday wasn't coming. More importantly, I didn't need it. I was already enough, just not for them. And that was okay. The settlement money was substantial, but not life-changing. After fees and taxes, I had 6 months' expenses and better equipment, but the real windfall was opportunity. My video went viral. I'd become respected in the sustainable fashion community. Publications wanted interviews. Other designers asked for advice. Universities invited me to speak to students. It was overwhelming. I'd imagined recognition coming from perfect dresses, not from publicly defending myself. This felt backwards. You're looking at this wrong, my friend Viv said. You became visible because of theft. Sure, but people are staying because of your actual work. Look at your wait list. She was right. My wait list went from 2 months to 8. People weren't hiring me because of drama. They discovered my work through the video and genuinely loved it. I hired help for the first time. Part-time assistant named Dove, 23, fresh from fashion school. Training her reminded me how much knowledge I'd accumulated. The studio felt less lonely. Dove and I discussed projects, troubleshooted construction, experimented with techniques. She brought fresh perspectives and enthusiasm I'd lost. I also started saying no. Not every opportunity was right. Some interviews wanted to focus exclusively on drama. I declined. Some collaborations would require compromising values. I turned them down. Saying no felt powerful. For years, I'd taken every opportunity because I was desperate. Now I could be selective. Choose projects aligning with values. The textile cooperative workshops were incredibly fulfilling. Teaching people who genuinely wanted to learn natural dyeing reminded me why I loved this work. One student, a woman in her 50s, recently laid off from corporate, told me she'd always dreamed of doing something creative. Your story inspired me to stop waiting. If you could build this working 3 jobs, I can at least try. That stuck with me. I hadn't thought about my story that way, as inspiration. 6 months after settlement, a major department store buyer emailed. They wanted to know if I'd be interested in having pieces carried in their sustainable fashion section. My first instinct was immediate yes, but I made myself wait 24 hours. I talked it through with Viv, Dove, Patricia. What are your concerns? Patricia asked. Scale. Everything I make is essentially custom. That's part of the value. If I'm making pieces for major retail, how do I maintain that without burning out? What would it take for you to say yes? Control over production. Fair pricing. Realistic timelines. Freedom to walk away if it's not working. Then negotiate for that. You have leverage now. The negotiation was educational. They wanted exclusivity. I said no. They wanted certain volume. I countered with what I could realistically make. They wanted lower prices. I showed detailed breakdowns of costs. We reached an agreement that felt right. I'd provide a capsule collection of 20 pieces per quarter, all handmade or closely supervised, with full creative control and fair pricing. The first collection was deeply personal. Each piece incorporated techniques I'd spent years perfecting. Natural dyes from a local farm, carefully sourced deadstock fabrics. Every detail was intentional. When the collection launched, I felt something I hadn't in years. Uncomplicated pride. These pieces represented who I actually was as a designer. The collection sold out in 3 weeks. You know what this means, Dove said, grinning. They're going to want more. They're going to want faster and cheaper, and we're going to negotiate for what actually works. She laughed. Look at you setting boundaries. A year ago, I would have said yes to anything, desperate to prove myself. Now I understood right opportunities respect my process. Values and capacity. I was building something sustainable, not just environmentally, but in my life. I could create without destroying myself. I could say no to what didn't serve me. I could set boundaries and trust that people valuing my work would respect them. It had taken losing family to find myself. Bittersweet, but ultimately worth it. I hadn't spoken to my father or stepmother in 8 months when the email arrived. Quinn, your stepmother and I would like to have lunch to discuss the family situation. We think enough time has passed for productive conversation. Part of me wanted to delete it. Part was curious, and part still hoped they were reaching out to apologize. I showed my therapist. What do you want from this? She asked. I want them to see me, really see me. Not as the disappointing daughter, but as a person who built something real. And if they can't, then I'll know for sure where I stand. I agreed to lunch at a neutral restaurant. They were already there when I arrived. My father looked older. My stepmother wore less jewelry. After painful small talk, my father cleared his throat. We wanted to talk about everything. We've had time to reflect. We've both been seeing therapists. Some things have come to light we weren't ready to face. My stepmother took a sip of water. I recognize I showed favoritism toward my daughter. That wasn't fair. You were part of the family, and I didn't treat you that way. Why tell me this now? Because we want to try repairing our relationship, my father said. We've lost one daughter. We don't want to lose you too. There it was. My half-sister had cut them off after settlement. Angry they hadn't protected her. They'd lost the daughter they'd centered attention on. What happened with her? She's struggling, moved across the country, changed her name, doesn't return our calls. When she does, she blames us for not stopping you. Stopping me from protecting my intellectual property? We know she was wrong, my father said. In therapy, we've had to confront that we enabled her behavior. We taught her that success and image mattered more than integrity. My stepmother was crying quietly. I loved her so much I couldn't see her clearly. I made excuses for everything. When she stole from you, I blamed you for making it public. I couldn't accept my daughter was capable of something so deliberately wrong. And now? Now she's gone and won't speak to us, and I have to live with knowing I helped create someone who hurt people. I'm not asking you to forgive her. I'm asking if there's any possibility you could forgive us. I didn't have an answer ready, But 8 months of therapy didn't erase years of dismissal. I appreciate this acknowledgement, but I've spent my life trying to get you to see me as valuable, and you only showed up after losing the daughter you actually wanted. My father flinched. That's not true. When's my birthday? When did I launch my business? What's my brand called? He couldn't answer. My birthday is May 17th. I launched 2 years ago. It's called Threadwork. I specialize in natural plant-based dyes. I learned all that working 3 jobs because you told me I needed a real career. My stepmother cried harder. I'm not trying to be cruel, but I need you to understand. You didn't just dismiss my work. You dismissed me, for years. Now you want to repair things because the daughter you invested attention in is gone. What do we do? My father asked, genuinely lost. I don't know if you can fix this, but if you want to try, it has to be about actually getting to know me, not family obligation or guilt. Genuinely caring who I am and what I've built. We can do that. Then start by learning about my work. Come to my studio. Not to judge, but to see and understand. Ask questions because you care. Show up without making it about her or family drama. They nodded. And understand this takes time. You can't undo years with lunch and therapy. I'm willing to try, but I need to protect myself. We understand. Thank you for even being willing. When we parted, my father hugged me. I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago. I drove back with complicated emotions. One lunch didn't fix everything, but it was something. Time would tell if they could actually change. Either way, I was okay. I'd built a life I loved. If they could genuinely join it, I'd be open. But I didn't need them anymore. And that made all the difference. My father showed up to the studio 2 weeks after lunch. He called ahead asking when would be convenient, which itself was miraculous. He arrived looking uncertain, but making effort. This is it, I said. Dove was at the sewing machine. My work table was covered with fabric swatches. He walked slowly through, looking at everything. He stopped at the wall with photos of completed pieces alongside original sketches. You made all of these? Everyone. How long does it take? Simple blouse might be 8 to 12 hours. Fully lined jacket could be 40 hours or more, plus sourcing, pattern making, fitting sessions. And people pay for this? They pay fair prices reflecting time, skill, and sustainable materials. My pieces last years, sometimes decades. Fast fashion falls apart in months. He nodded. I never understood the difference before. He moved to the dyeing station. What's all this? Natural dye materials. I make most dyes using plants and minerals instead of synthetic chemicals. I showed him fabric samples in different shades. For the first time in memory, he listened without interrupting. When Dove finished her hem, he complimented her work. Can I see how you actually make something? I showed him a commission I was starting. Consultation notes, chosen fabric, the sketch. Then pattern making, explaining how I adapted patterns to each person's measurements. This is engineering, he said, surprised. Fashion is applied geometry and physics. Technical work requiring precision. I never knew. I always thought it was just artistic intuition. There's artistry, but it's built on technical skill. Like architecture. Something shifted in his face. My father was a civil engineer. I should have made that connection. Should have understood what you do requires the same systematic thinking I use. Why didn't you? He was quiet. Because I was looking for you to follow a traditional path. When you chose something different, I dismissed it instead of trying to understand. He touched a fabric sample. I failed you. As a parent, I failed to see you for who you are. Yeah, you did. I'm sorry. 2 words I'd waited years to hear. We talked another hour. He asked about business model, pricing, marketing, engineer questions, but showing genuine interest. My stepmother visited separately a week later. She brought coffee, a small gesture showing she'd thought ahead. I wanted to see where you work. We sat in the consultation area. She looked around. I owe you a more specific apology. I was threatened by you. Not consciously, but looking back, I see it clearly. You were your father's daughter from his first marriage. You reminded him of his life before me, and you were so competent. You didn't need me, so I told myself you didn't want relationship with me. You made that a self-fulfilling prophecy. I know. And I poured energy into my daughter, partly genuine love and partly because I could control that relationship. Really, I was raising her to need me, depend on my validation. She looked down. The therapist helped me see I did to her what my mother did to me. Made her dependent on external approval instead of teaching her to find worth in herself. That's heavy. And I have to live with knowing my parenting contributed to her making choices that hurt people. That hurt you. She met my eyes. I'm not asking you to forgive her. I'm asking you to understand I'm trying to do better. I showed her around. She asked different questions, more focused on creative process. She stayed almost 2 hours. Before leaving, she asked if she could commission a piece. Not a sympathy purchase, but because I genuinely love what you make. Over next months, they both made efforts, small but consistent. My father came twice more. My stepmother kept her consultation, commissioned a jacket. They started following my business social media and actually engaging. My father shared an article I'd featured in. My stepmother left genuine review. It wasn't fairy tale reconciliation, still awkward moments, but something was different. They were seeing me. 4 months after that first lunch, my father called about a grant opportunity for sustainable small businesses. I know you don't need me to solve problems, but I saw this and wanted to pass it along. Thank you, I said, and meant it. I applied. 2 months later, I was awarded substantial sum for business development. The money would let me expand, bring Dove on full-time with benefits, and start an apprenticeship program. My father was the first person I called. You did this, he said, pride in his voice. You built something real and valuable. Yeah, I did. For the first time, we were connecting as equals. It had taken losing almost everything to get here, but we'd arrived at something genuine. We were building something new, brick by careful brick, and that was enough. The message came through social media on a random Tuesday, almost exactly 1 year after everything exploded. It was from my half-sister. A new account, but the message made it clear who it was. Hi. I understand if you don't want to respond. I just wanted you to know I'm getting real help now. Actual intensive treatment for underlying issues. My therapist thinks I should apologize directly to people I hurt, not to make myself feel better, but to take accountability. I'm deeply sorry for stealing your work, for betraying your trust, for dismissing you, for trying to use my platform to overshadow what you built through actual skill. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to hear that I understand what I did was wrong and why. I hope your business is thriving. You deserve that. You always did. I read it 3 times. I showed Dove. How do you feel? I don't know. Part appreciates it. Part is angry it took this long. Part is suspicious. All of those can be true. I sat with the message 2 days before responding. Finally, I wrote, I appreciate you reaching out. I'm glad you're getting help. I hope you're able to build something genuine. I'm not ready for more contact, but I wanted to acknowledge your apology. Her response came quickly. I understand. Thank you for responding. That's more than I deserved. I won't contact you again unless you reach out first. I genuinely wish you well. I felt something release. Not forgiveness exactly, but letting go of sharp anger. She'd hurt me badly, but she was also a person drowning in her own issues. I could refuse relationship while hoping she found healthier path forward. A week later, Patricia called. You remember those other designers who came forward after your video? Of course. 2 are putting together a collective, a support and resource network for independent designers who've dealt with intellectual property theft. They want to know if you'd be interested in being a founding member. I joined immediately. The collective would provide legal resources, documentation guidance, and mutual support. We'd share best practices, connect people with lawyers, and advocate for better protections. Helping other designers protect their work felt like turning painful experience into something useful. We held monthly meetings and started a resource library. One designer, an embroidery artist in her 60s, cried during meeting. I thought I was too small to matter. You matter, I told her. Your work has value, and we're going to help you protect it. We connected her with a lawyer. Last I heard, she'd successfully gotten counterfeit products removed and was pursuing damages. My business continued growing steadily. The department store relationship evolved into reliable partnership. Independent commissions were booked months in advance. The apprenticeship program had 2 students showing incredible promise. One afternoon, teaching a workshop, I realized I was genuinely happy. Not in a manic way, but in a deep, sustainable way. I loved my work. I had healthy relationships with people who valued me. The version of me from 2 years ago, desperate for family approval, felt like a different person. She'd been so focused on external validation that she'd lost sight of why she loved this work. I still thought about my half-sister sometimes, wondered if she was okay, if therapy was helping. I didn't wish her harm. I hoped she found peace. But I also didn't need to know. Her journey was hers. Mine was mine. My father had started joining me for dinner once a month. We'd talk about work. He'd learn to ask questions and listen. The relationship wasn't deep, but it was honest. My stepmother had commissioned more pieces and become an advocate in her social circles. Several friends were now clients. She'd also started taking a photography class. We texted occasionally without underlying tension. They'd invited me to their house for holiday dinner. I'd said maybe, which was progress. The wounds weren't fully healed. Therapy helped me understand they might never fully heal, and that was okay. Healing wasn't about forgetting. It was about integration, about incorporating difficult experiences without letting them define your entire narrative. I was more than the daughter who wasn't valued, more than the designer whose work was stolen, more than family drama or legal battle or success. I was Quinn, a self-taught designer, a teacher, a business owner, a person who'd learned to value herself even when others didn't. The rest was just details. The invitation came 18 months after settlement. A fashion school wanted me to give their keynote address at graduation. Dove talked me into it. I spent weeks writing and rewriting my speech. The day of, I was so nervous I could barely eat. The auditorium was packed. I stood backstage in a dress I'd made myself, naturally dyed indigo linen with hand-stitched details, trying to remember how to breathe. When I walked out, I saw my father and stepmother sitting in the audience. They'd driven 3 hours. The surprise steadied me. Thank you for having me. I'm going to tell you something that might sound discouraging at first, but I promise it has a point. Most of you will not become famous designers. Your names won't be in major magazines. You won't dress celebrities. And that's okay. That's actually more than okay. I talked about my journey, working 3 jobs while teaching myself, building business slowly, choosing sustainability over profit, learning to value my work even when family dismissed it. Then I talked about the theft as practical lesson about protecting intellectual property, copyright registration, documentation, cease and desist letters. But here's what I want you to really hear. The theft was terrible. The legal battle was exhausting, but neither defined my career. They were obstacles I overcame, not the core of my story. The core is that I love what I do. I love taking raw materials and transforming them. I love collaborating with clients. I love teaching. That's the work. The rest is just noise. I talked about finding your values, about boundaries, about the difference between external validation and internal worth. You're going to face challenges. People will steal from you, copy your work. Companies will pressure you to compromise values. Family might not understand. You'll doubt yourself, wonder if you're good enough. I paused. In those moments, remember why you started. Remember what you love about creating. Remember you have the right to protect your work, to set boundaries, to build career on your own terms. Success looks different for everyone. For me, it's a small studio where I make clothes I'm proud of with people I care about. That might not look impressive to everyone, but it's exactly what I wanted to build. The applause was overwhelming. During reception, students came to talk. They asked about process, business model, legal case. One young woman said, "I've been feeling like a failure because I want to do small batch custom work instead of big fashion houses. Hearing you talk about choosing that path really helped. Small batch custom work is legitimate career. Don't let anyone make you feel it's less valuable." My father found me, looking emotional. That was beautiful. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I know, I said. We'd talked about this. He'd done the work. I told some colleagues about your work. 3 want to commission pieces. I hope that's okay. That's okay. Thank you. My stepmother approached. I brought people from my book club I thought might be interested. It's not, I said, and meant it. Driving home, I thought about how far I'd come, not just in business success or family reconciliation, but in understanding who I was and what I valued. 2 years ago, I would have measured that day by whether my father seemed proud. Now I measured differently. Had I shared useful information, encouraged students, represented my values authentically? Yes, and that was what mattered. When I got home, there was a package. Inside was a handwritten note and a small ceramic bowl. From my half-sister. I've been learning ceramics in therapy. It's helping me understand creating something from scratch, putting in actual work. I made this bowl. It's not perfect, but it's mine. I wanted you to have it as thank you. Not for forgiving me, but for standing up for yourself. Watching you defend your work taught me something I needed to learn. That real value comes from what you create, not what you take. You don't need to respond. The bowl was simple, slightly lopsided, glazed in soft green. I could see thumbprints in clay. Clearly beginner work, but something genuine. I put it on my desk. Not as forgiveness, but as acknowledgement. We'd both been changed. Whether we'd ever have relationship again, I didn't know. Probably not. But I could acknowledge her growth without being part of it. I could hold complicated truths. She'd hurt me, and she was working on herself. Those coexisted. That night, I posted a photo of the keynote. Caption was simple. Remember why you started. Protect what you build. Success is personal. I had a commission to finish. A bride waiting for her dress. Work that mattered, work I loved, work that was entirely my own. The rest was just details. It's been 2 years since everything exploded. 2 years since I posted that video. 2 years since I fought back and won. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago. Sometimes like yesterday. I'm sitting in my studio right now. What used to be just me in a converted garage is now proper workshop, with 3 sewing stations, professional equipment, organized storage, and natural light. Dove is full-time with benefits. We've got 2 apprentices, both incredibly talented. The work hasn't gotten easier, but it's gotten more sustainable. I'm not staying up until midnight desperately finishing commissions. I'm running a real business with systems and boundaries. I still take custom commissions, but I'm selective. I still work with the department store. And I've started licensing patterns to other designers through the collective. My relationship with my father has found comfortable distance. We have dinner once a month. He's learned about my work and genuinely respects it. We don't talk about the past much, but we have a present that works. My stepmother has become an unexpected advocate. She gives talks at her social club about sustainable fashion. Several friends are now clients. We're not close, but we're cordial. As for my half-sister, we've had no direct contact since the bowl. From what I can gather, she's working at a ceramics studio and taking business classes. She doesn't claim to be an artist or entrepreneur, just learning and working, which seems healthy. I don't think about her much anymore. The anger has faded into distant sadness for the relationship we could have had. But I've stopped waiting for family dynamics to change. I've built my own support system. The collective has grown to over 200 members across multiple countries. We've helped dozens of creators protect intellectual property. It's become one of the most fulfilling aspects of my work. I've learned things I wish I'd known earlier. That protecting your work isn't vindictive. It's necessary. That setting boundaries doesn't make you difficult. It makes you sustainable. That success isn't about proving yourself to people who've decided not to see you. That sometimes the family you're born into isn't capable of valuing you. And that's not a reflection of your worth. That building a life you actually want is more important than building a life that looks impressive. Most importantly, I've learned to trust myself. To trust my skills, instincts, judgment. For years, I second-guessed everything. Now I know I'm good at what I do. I know my work has value. I know I can handle challenges. That confidence didn't come from legal victory. It came from continuing to create, continuing to build, continuing to choose my values. It came from seeing clients wear pieces I made and feel beautiful. From teaching apprentices. From knowing I built this with my own hands and nobody can take that. Sometimes people ask if I regret how everything happened. If I wish I'd kept it private. Maintained family peace. The answer is complicated. I regret that it happened. I regret that someone I trusted violated that trust. I regret the months of stress. Those things were hard. But I don't regret defending myself. I don't regret protecting my work. I don't regret refusing to be quiet when someone was actively stealing from me. Standing up for myself was the right choice, even though it cost me. I'm looking around my studio now, at the work in progress, at evidence of years of refusing to quit. This is mine. I made this. Not by stealing or shortcuts, but through actual work and dedication. My half-sister tried to take it. My family tried to diminish it. Critics tried to dismiss it. And it's still here because I protected it. Because I valued it enough to fight. Because I finally learned my work deserved protection and I deserved respect. I'm 34 now. I run a sustainable fashion studio. I'm part of a collective helping other creators. I have a relationship with my father that's honest even if not deep. I have friends who value me. I have work I love. More than that, I have peace. Not the kind where everything is perfect, but the kind where you know who you are and what you stand for. Where you can look at your life and recognize it as yours. The commission I'm working on today is for a woman celebrating her 50th birthday. She wants a dress that makes her feel powerful and beautiful. I've been working on design for weeks, using organic silk and natural plant dyes. This is what I love. This moment of creation. Taking someone's vision and turning it into reality through skill and care. Every stitch is intentional. Every choice is deliberate. This dress will last her years, maybe decades. She'll wear it and feel confident. That's the kind of legacy I'm building. Not fame, but tangible objects that carry meaning and last. I'm building something sustainable, not just in terms of business, but in terms of my life. And it feels right in a way that seeking approval never did. The work continues. The studio stays busy. The apprentices learn. Life continues. Richer and fuller than I imagined during those dark months. I'm exactly where I need to be, doing exactly what I love, surrounded by people who value me. And I wouldn't change a thing.